1, 2, 3. That's about right, I guess.
Anyway, she had just two, a boy and a girl, but they had several children each, and they had several children each. And she has 44 children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and a couple of great-great-grandchildren. 44. They do, to get that all together would be a. Can you turn down the lights? Or is it?
Can you give me about 50, you'll get 15 minutes to close it?
Yeah, yeah, that's what we should.
I'll come back in here and get it for you.
Okay, that'd be great, thank you. Don't want to strain anything. Well, we're having a gathering of the clan. Good to see some people, familiar faces back here.
Yeah, you live to tell about it, didn't you? I'm just great.
That's my favorite food, you know. I love nonstop. Cherry, cherry pie. That's, you know, just about any time. I prefer piles of potatoes. So. Not that cake is something I turn down and give them a slice, but, you know, after having my brothers, I'd rather have pie. still haven't had hip surgery. And then sympathy has been extended through the memorial service for Steve Bowden Boulain and father of Laura Boulain, and was held today in Anderson, Missouri. So those are the ones that we have on our announcements. So, pardon?
Turn on your mic.
Maybe that'll help one.
So, as we begin tonight, I'm going to ask Don here if he would, if you can give him a punch there. Will you lead us in an opening prayer, sir?
Our God, our Father, we thank you so much for the time you've given us this evening to come and learn more about your word. And we just thank you for the day that we have, knowing that we're your children, and that you love us, and that you made us to love you. Again, Father, we're so thankful for all you give and do each and every day. We open our minds and our hearts to what Paul has to say today, this evening. And I pray, Father, that he is blessed more than any other. Thank you so much for Jesus. We pray all this in his name. Amen.
Amen. And, Don, while I've got you, I'm going to pick on you again. Will you pass out some of these on this side? And Jim, could you help me on this side? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, brothers. Okay. Well, we're entering into a new year, into a new study, the study of the Psalms. And I trust you will enjoy this. I've always enjoyed the Psalms. I think we will find out that they are more than just poetry. They're very rich in information. It's one of the most, this collection is one of the most commonly quoted in the New Testament. Whereas we will see, it's very rich in messianic information and so many other things that the Psalms, I think, are just really rich for study. And I hope we will enjoy this together. And it's the book of Psalms, that's plural, but normally you will speak of each one. You don't say the 23rd Psalm, you say the 23rd Psalm, it's singular. So we'll keep that in mind. And so tonight we'll get started here in just a minute. We got some people still coming in, and they're still passing. And one word here. Thomas, don't leave tonight. I got to see you about something. After class? I said, Thomas? Yes, you? See me after class. I've got something for you. Thank you, sir. Anybody not get one? Need one? Okay, I think we got them all, Jim. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, our term psalm comes from the Greek word psalmoi, which means words set to music, psalms. Okay? No big surprise there. The Hebrew is teleim, praises. The single is telil, and if you remember in times past, I keep trying to teach y'all, stick a little Hebrew on you occasionally, that a Hebrew word that ends in im is the way they make things plural. We put an S on it, they put an im on it. So telelim or talim, praises. Psalms then is the first book of the Ketuvim, the writings, Old Testament traditionally, and they're mentioned in the New Testament. I remember how do you break down the Old Testament into three parts? Anybody? The blank, and the writings. Pardon? The law, the prophets, and the writings. Yeah, the law, the prophets, and the writings. The Torah, the law, the prophets, and the writings. And the writings were the bottom rung. The Jews put emphasis on the books. The higher book, the law, was the one. I mean, the first 5 books, the law, the Torah, that carried the most weight. Then the prophets, and then the writings. So if you were two Jews arguing and you had a point you were going to make, and if you could back up what you're saying from the Torah, I don't care if you could give you 15 quotes from the prophets and the writings, the Torah was the authority because it carried weight. Not that the writings were not important, but just from their point of view, the Torah was the heaviest. Okay, the Psalms consist of 5 collections, and here they are. Now, I gave you a handout. We'll get to those in just a minute. I didn't give a handout on all this material, but they are going to be recording this, and you can get it later, or we can share it with you later if you want to. But these are the 5 collections. We'll be pointing these out as we go. Each collection ends with a doxology, a praise to God. And with the Psalm 150, the concluding doxology. Okay, Book of Psalms is a composite or compilation of psalms from different periods and different composers. It's not all David. We talk about the Psalms of David. Well, he did a good portion of them. He didn't do them all. As such, the date of a book was finally assembled would probably have to be during the exile, because we have some poems from the exile. Exilic, we call them the exilic psalms. That's why we believe then that these different books were gathered together and then finally all put together in the one last major scroll. Okay, this is because the dates of the Psalms would range. The earliest Psalm would be from a Psalm of Moses. We have Psalms of David, and then we have the Psalms of the exile. So the collection started early, and with, Psalms added. And, we had to look at this, that there were popular Psalms back then. Some made it to the top 10. Some made it to the scroll, and others maybe were not so popular. So the ones that were considered really significant and inspired would be ones that would be collected and preserved. So from Moses, we have Psalm 90, and the collection went on until the exile in Psalm 137. But the Psalms are not the only or the oldest examples of Hebrew poetry. In chronology, Exodus 15, 1-18, Moses celebrates the escape from Egypt in the oldest hymn we have, the Song of Moses then. But then, right after that is Exodus 15:21, the Song of Miriam, the Psalm of Miriam praising God. Deuteronomy 32, 1-14, the Psalm of the history of God of Israel. Judges 5, 1-31, the Psalm of David celebrating the defeat of Sisera. Now, while this is not as old as the previous ones, it is the oldest known Hebrew, structure of Hebrew we have in the Old Testament. 1 Samuel 2, 1-10, the Psalm of Hannah. This is a Magnificat glorifying Jehovah because he granted her a son, and she sings this song. Solomon is credited in 1 Kings of 432 of composing 1,005 psalms. We believe at least 3 survive, depending on how you count them. Of course, if he wrote Ecclesiastes, we believe he did write Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is a whole collection of psalms, really, of songs. It can be set to music. It's poetry. And of course, the Song of Solomon, which could be counted in there too. So, Isaiah, Hezekiah's psalm to praise God for sparing his life. So here's now where your handout starts. The Psalms are justifiably celebrated for their beauty of phrase, of imagery, and of concepts, as we will see. We all can understand that. That's why the people have enjoyed the Psalms through the years. But there are many types of Psalms for many occasions and purposes. Some of them are going to be kind of strange, and we will find out. Hymns, general praises, you can follow better on your paper maybe. This is about as big as I could get it, I can get it on one page. So general praises of God, that's what we would normally think of Psalms, the praising God. And then also, though, more especially the God's kingship. God is king. Psalms of Zion. Now this is interesting. These are called more technically Psalms of Ascent. Ascent meaning going up. These were Psalms that let me kind of explain. It was not wise in those days to travel alone unless you were very adept at self-defense. And so people going to Jerusalem would usually gather in considerable numbers in Jericho and wait for a crowd to gather. And then they would go up to Jerusalem. Now, if you have been blessed to be in the Holy Land and have taken a bus or whatever, ride from Jerusalem to Jericho and back, you know what they mean. You could absolutely put a marble or a baseball or something as you leave the gate from Jerusalem, let it roll, and it will roll all the way downhill to Jericho. I mean, it's just... So when they talk about going up to Jerusalem, they were talking about going up to Jerusalem. So now they would gather in, good numbers, people that kind of got along, and then they would go up together. And as they went, one of the things that kind of helped pass the time and encourage each other would be to sing songs. Songs. And so these were often then became popular, were remembered and then written down and was preserved. And they were called the Psalms of Ascent. Psalms they sang going up to Jerusalem, celebrating the fact that we're on our way. We sing that, Zion, glorious Zion. We sing songs like this about going up to God's hill. Laments. We'd say sad songs, singing sad songs, individual laments. We're going to have quite a few. David has quite a few laments. And there are some sad moments in his life, just like everybody has sad moments. Then there are communal laments when the songwriter kind of helps the group get together and share an event, something that maybe has struck the entire community, and they sing this. Now, part of the lament usually is asking God for help and support and comfort in this. And sometimes they're pretty direct forward. God, we need your help on this. Come to our aid, help. Now, another thing, I just had a thought here, I need to be sure to say this. This is not going to be a verse by verse, psalm by psalm, verse by verse study. I've gone through and I'm trying to pick out what I think are the significant Psalms, are significant parts of Psalms that have something significant to remember. A lot of the Psalms are, in a sense, repetitious. I mean, that you read this Psalm of praise and you read the next one, there's a great similarity to it. So I try to pick out those significant ones that have something really, I think, powerful or beautiful or significant to say, and certain phrases that pop in that have made an impact on us today. So it's not going to be literally verse by verse by verse by verse by verse. There's 150 Psalms that would be here through the next year. So we will get to the core of it, I hope. Songs of thanksgiving, individual thanksgiving. Again, we have days when David was kind of low and he's lamenting. Some of them are kind of, I hate to say this about David, some of them sound a little bit whiny sometimes. You may, oh, woe is me. And then other times he's on up, he's praising God and, what a wonderful day and all this. So, David, like any other human being, had some good days and some bad days. And he had some good reasons to sing, and he had some good reasons to lament. Okay? And to be thankful, and communal thanksgiving. So there are times when the whole community is called in to sing. Now, again, we have to remember this. They sang in a courtyard. They did not go inside the temple. Jewish worship was not inside the temple, like we come inside the sanctuary here. We call it the auditorium. They sang outdoors in the courtyard. They would gather in the courtyard. Now, some of the outer courtyard, men and women could mingle together and could sing together. If there was a special need, the men could go into the men's court, and then they could have psalms that the men would sing sometimes. And then only the priest, though, would ever go into the temple itself. Then, of course, we just talked about Psalms of Ascent. Often the crowds, when you got to Jerusalem, there were various city squares and openings. People would gather there and maybe have a fire and roast a kid or something, roast a lamb, and they could sit around and they would sing psalms. So some of it was very communal in this. And not all of it handled even within the court. Some of it was outside, very popular. Remember, these were intended to be at times popular songs. Or songs, whatever. So communal thanksgiving. Royal psalms. These are psalms that we will see that are dealing with David as king, usually. His kingship, or the kingship of whoever is king, but primarily at this time it's David as king. And dealing with kingly issues or praising him for his kingship and things like that. Now there are some minor types. Confidence. These are some of the ones very common, really. David and others will say, I'm so confident that God's going to do this, or God has done this for me, or God has been with me, and He's going to be with me. We're going to get this done. It's very confident. Wisdom. Some of them are almost like proverbs, and handing out little nuggets of information or wisdom to encourage us. Acrostic. There's really only one major acrostic, 119. That's the one that you see that has the heading over each one. It's the letter of the alphabet. And that means, it starts off with Aleph, and that line, because we can't really replicate it. But in Hebrew, the first letter of every one of those lines would start with Aleph. And then the next one was Beta, Aleph, Beth, Beth. And then all the first lines would start with Beth, and then so on and so on and so forth, all the way through the alphabet. This was really a tour de force of psalm making. That you would be able to do this, just like someone today wanted to set out and maybe just to show that their ability to write would do this with all A's or all B's or all C's. So that really stands out as one of the really more unique Psalms, and we'll come to that one, and it has some good parts in it. Some really good parts. Now this is the interesting one. We'll come to these two. The imprecatory, that's the famous name, that's the technical name. Anyone recognize that word from anywhere? Imprecatory? Pardon? It means to curse. These are psalms of cursing. And there are some dillies. I mean, when the person really gets down to it, I mean, he says, may all these horrible things happen to you. Everything from stub your toe to your children get eaten by dogs. I mean, some of the stuff they talk about is terrible. They're just really putting the curse on some of these people. There's only a few of them, but there are a couple. And when you get there, you can't miss them because, I mean, they're going to lower the boom, the cursing psalms. Okay, any questions? And very important one, messianic. Now, some of the psalms can be virtually entirely messianic, but those are very rare. But there are times when it comes along where the psalmist, whether it's David or whoever, and you can see that they're singing and they say something that has a definite messianic import because it's later quoted in the New Testament. But you wonder, remember, the New Testament says, I think it's Peter that says that there were things that even they weren't, they were saying it, they were singing it, but what does that actually mean? They looked in, they were wondering, why am I saying this? Or why, it would come to them inspired, but sometimes maybe they themselves really didn't understand the messianic import. Maybe they did to some degree. Because they're going along and then suddenly there'll be a messianic phrase or a messianic idea that comes out. So that's why we will come through and we'll try to stop as we go along and say, well, see here this? You recognize this? And it will be picked up. As I say, the Psalms are often quoted in the New Testament. And Jesus quotes the Psalms about himself. Did you not read this or did you not see this? Remember this in the Psalms where David said this? In fact, one of his greatest statements, David said, the Lord said to my Lord. And Jesus says, who was he speaking about? David was king. Who could be his Lord? And they didn't know what to say. Christ said, well, I stumped you, see. But, so, these are important. The Messianic Psalms, we'll say, will be very important. Okay, any questions? Now, this breakdown has been kind of taken from this pioneer of psalmic study, Hermann Gunkel, German theologian, was the first man to actually sit down and look at the Psalms and say, okay, why? Why this psalm? And what was this psalm about? And why do you think they were doing this? And he did research. And so he's the one that began to break these down and come up with some of these major divisions that we're talking about here. So you can find his book still if you're interested. It's not that thick, but it's a pioneer work, a seminal work, Hermann Gunkel and his work on the Psalms. Okay, the structure of Hebrew poetry. Again, that's in your handout. It does not have degrees of contrast that we have. Good, better, best. Hot, hotter, hardest. Cold, colder, coldest. They achieve this by emphasizing a concept 3 times. Most famous example, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. So if you look all through the Old Testament, Jehovah is the only time they ever use the 3 holies. Because that's like saying holy, holier, holiest, or most holy. So that is an example of how they would emphasize something. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. I don't know if y'all remember, a long time ago we had a study in Amos. In the very first chapter, he said, and for 3 sins of Tyre, and for 4. So for 3, 3 was kind of the maximum. But then he said, no, you went one past the line there. So he does that sermon for 3 sins, and he gets, and then he says, and for 4. So he even goes further to emphasize that exception. What now? About Amos? In the first chapter of Amos, he's giving this whole litany of different places around Israel that were going to be punished for he says, and for 3 sins of Tyre, and for 3 sins of Canaan, and for 3 sins. And he'll do that. He'll give you the 3, but he says, and then for 4, he'll go one more, making an extra point there. Hebrew poetry does not rhyme. There's no, I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree. Or, once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over a many quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, suddenly there came a rapping as if someone was tapping at my chamber door. You don't have that rhythm, that rhyme that we have. So what do? Hebrew poetry, and poetry of that Semitic poetry, you can even say. You can even find similar things in Egypt. You can find it also among the Arabic tribes and others. Parallelism is what we define it as. Parallel thoughts or concepts are repeated in various manners. Okay? Starting, synonymous parallelism. Synonymous meaning the same. The second line repeats the intent of the first, but you change the words for variety. So, example, Psalms 6:4. Turn, O Lord, deliver my life. Save me for the sake of your steadfast love. You see the same idea, but just rephrasing it. For in death there is no remembrance of you. In Sheol, who will give you praise? So they're building on the same concepts, what we're saying. Antithetic parallelism. That's the opposite. Okay? The second line contrasts the theme of the first. Psalm 18:26. With the purified you show yourself pure. With the crooked you make yourself tortuous. Seem tortuous. So pure, crooked. For you save a humble people, but the haughty eyes you bring down. So humble, haughty, opposite. Synthetic parallelism. The second line builds upon the first line to maybe add clarification or often intensity. They want to intensify the thought. Psalm 8:3. When I look at your heavens and the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is man that you are mindful of him? What is the son of man you care for? So the first one, when I look upon your heavens and the work of your fingers, okay. Well, what about that? The moon and the stars you have set in place. That's where he continues the thought. He adds more to it to kind of emphasize. What are the work of your fingers? The next one, what is man that you are mindful of him? Okay. Well, what is the son of man? Who is the son of man that you care for him? So again, you're taking the idea, but you're expanding it, you're emphasizing it. Expanded parallelism. A third line is added. It either completes, explains, intensifies, contrasts, whatever. So normally parallelism is 2, parallel. But then sometimes they had a thought that had to go over. You had one little more punch you wanted to put in there. I am weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. It's almost like haiku over in Japan, where you have these, ideas that come in here. So you can see you mourning, flood my bed with tears, but then he has to have one more, really drive the point home. I drench my couch with my weeping. Okay? Any questions? As we get into this, we're going to, occasionally we'll kind of help you remember and break some of this down, as you will see as we go. Once you kind of get the feel for Hebrew poetry, it has great meaning more. It adds more meaning to it as you look at it. Psalm headings. All but 23 of the Psalms have a heading of some sort that you'll have in your Bible usually. These headings are not considered inspired. They're not to be considered inspired because many of them were added later by people like Gunkel or monks or priests or somebody else tried to add something to it, maybe, to try to explain why or whatever. So we're not sure where these headings came from. So they're interesting. They are found in some older texts, but not always. So they shouldn't really be considered absolute or inspired. They may indicate to which collection the psalm belongs. Could be accurate. It may be added later. What time of psalm it is, how it was to be performed, circumstances under which it was written, who the supposed composer or composers were, and other details might be provided. One of the things we're going to find out is that there's a lot of technical stuff in the Psalms that we have no understanding of. Even the Jews don't understand. It's so ancient, they lost control way back when. To say that, well, musical terms is what we're talking about. But we'll come back to that. David, composers, David the king, of course, 73 Psalms attributed to him. Probably learned his craft as a shepherd boy, singing to the sheep to help keep them calm. Ancient practice, we read about the same thing being done by shepherds in Greece. In fact, the shepherds singing to their sheep became so important, they had singing contests. Shepherds would get together during shearing festivals, and they would compete with each other for the songs they sang to their sheep. Yes, sir?
I was looking at Psalm 4.
Okay.
For the director of music.
Okay.
That was added by who knows who.
Who knows who? Yeah.
And then it goes on with string instruments, a Psalm of David. So all of that was added by translators.
Somewhere down the road, there may have been a footnote somewhere they found. We don't know. Some of these were just, from what we can gather, added sometime later. Okay, as I said, the Greek shepherds would have contests of singings, and from that singing contest, the Greek term tragedy comes, because tragedy in Greek means goat song. These were songs they sang to their goats. Tragedy. Maybe they were sad. I don't know. Asaph was a leading composer, singing musician of the temple at the time of David, and his students. So Psalm 74, 79 reference the fall of Jerusalem. His name is also mentioned in Chronicles, as you see here. He is accredited with 12 different psalms. The sons of Korah, probably in the time of Solomon, as best they can date it, their psalms stress the power and beauty of the Mount Zion, where the temple stood. So they believe that they probably were, they may have been working as priests in the temple. So they have 11 psalms. Jeduthun was called a temple musician and singer in David and Solomon's reigns. 5 psalms. Solomon, 2 psalms. Ethan the Ezrahite, a sage at Solomon's time, 1 psalm. Heman the Ezrahite, mentioned in 1 Chronicles, a temple musician in David's time, 1 psalm. Moses, Psalm 90. Now, other terms found in the headings. My Hebrews here. Lame Nasia. Even the Jews really can't, they can kind of guess at it. we'll come to these and we'll kind of give you some of the Hebrew background. We'll have more time. But often they don't know. It's like so many technical terms, even in our language. Even if you go back and look at early English, Shakespearean English, or heaven forbid, Chaucerian English, and you look at some of the terms he's using, you go, what? And especially if he's using technical terms. And technical terms are particularly difficult because sometimes they're used once in the entire Bible. And the best way when you're translating, often the only way that you can get any sense of the word is what? Pardon? Context. Well, if there's only one context, it's kind of shaky what it might mean, because it may not be clear in that context. You may need to have other, input. These psalms are all to be accompanied by stringed instruments. They did use string instruments. Remember, David played the lyre. It was very common in that day. It's interesting, though, when they began to have the synagogue, they didn't use instruments. So that's interesting. That's why, people get all up, David is saying, and they had, in the temple they did do that. But from what we can tell, often in the synagogues outside, they didn't. They just sang. They didn't have instrument. But probably in some of their public gatherings when they got together, they probably did have instruments and sang. Psalm 5, it says, was to be accompanied by flutes. Now, again, that's what's being written there, but these may have been later, as they were putting these books together, someone later on may have said, well, when we sing this, we use flutes, so they just added that or something. Most famous, Selah. It's a form of musical notation used with many psalms. Its meaning is unclear. There have been people who have suggested and argued for that meant a pause, or the next line should be raised in pitch or volume or something else. Some say, sing it again, play it again, repeat this line. Or one person said, well, maybe it means repeat this line with emphasis. We're not sure what Selah means. But let me advise you this. If you are asked sometime to read publicly a psalm and it has Selah, don't read Selah. That would be like going along, in our songbook and you're reading the thing and you'd say, bass clef or something like that. It's a musical notation. It's not part of the psalm to be read. It's there for whoever was singing it or whatever. So you don't say Selah. You don't read that. That's a musical notation, not part of the psalm. That's just if you're asked, ladies or men, if the ladies' class or something, you're going to read a psalm, drop the Selah, okay? Any questions? Okay, we'll start tonight. Sorry it's so small, but I wanted to get it all on one page. I don't know if you can read. I'll read it to you. On the side, I'm going to put a little note. This is normally ranked among scholars and others in one of the top 10 psalms. The hit parade, okay, for its beauty and content. And it's famous, as we will see. Psalm 1. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so. They're like the chaff that the wind drives away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. Beautiful song, isn't it? Just full of all kinds of wonderful thoughts. Let's break it down. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of the sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scoffers. How would you classify that? Expanded parallelism. Remember, expands it, adds a third line. But his delight is the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. That's this simple synonymous paradigm. Same idea repeated. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. Again, expanded. And all that he does, he prospers. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind draws away. Antithetic and expanded. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. Synonymous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. Antithetic. Opposite. So you start looking at it, and these are all fall into place. And the more you read, if you think about these, some of this will really kind of begin to think, oh yeah, I can see what more he's saying here. There's an emphasis. There's a way, if he's putting it together, that to them maybe makes more sense than we do, but we can begin to get the idea when we really begin to look at this and begin to understand Hebrew poetry a little. So Psalm 1, we call it a psalm of confidence. Can be called that. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of the sinner, nor sits in the seat of scoffers. The sinner, I'm going to have little stars here that kind of emphasize certain words as we go. Scoffer is the name of the arrogant, haughty man who acts with pride, arrogant pride. That's in Proverbs 21:24. The term scoffer is used there too. You'll see these words being, in various other places. That's what I'm trying to point out. The Psalms were used all through the Bible, not just in the New Testament, but many other writers of the Old Testament will have psalmic references. And this seems to be right there. Stands in the way of the sinner, the scoffer. The word sinner there should be translated. It could be translated the scoffer. So, sinner, scoffer, seat of the scoffers, either way. But his delight is in the light of the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. Law here, the book of the law. This is the Torah. The book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful and do everything according to what is written. God says that to Joshua. Look, he's quoting the Psalm. Or maybe the Psalm quotes Joshua, really. So, you have this interplay. The psalmist here picks up on what God had said to Joshua. He is like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither. In all that he does, he prospers. Jeremiah said this, he is like a tree planted by water. See? It sends out its roots by the stream and does not fear when the heat comes, for its leaves remain green. It is not anxious in the year of drought, for it does not cease to bear fruit. So Jeremiah picks up the same thing. The wicked are not so, but are like chaff that the wind drives away. That they are like straw before the wind, and the chaff that the storm drives away. Job 21:18. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked will perish. Sometimes this thing up here rearranges my stuff, y'all. I just have to get aggravates it. This is a beautiful thought here. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust in him, and he will act. He will bring forth your righteousness as the light, and your justice as the noonday. So God, the Lord, knows the way of the righteous. And this is again picked up, the same theme is picked up in Psalm 37:5-6. How's the time looking here? Yes, sir.
I like to go back to that first verse, where it talks about, first talks about
Yes.
Then you're standing, then you've taken residence, you're sitting.
Okay,
You know, how that progression.
good,
The progression can be the other way around.
yeah.
But I think it's pretty important or significant, you know, you're first walking, and you can walk along the street with people but not be influenced by them. But then you stand, now you're in closer association with them, and then you sit. You're with them full board.
That's a very good insight, David, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that, yeah. And also, you think about that, when, you know, in the synagogue, or when the men got together, to be able to, they might walk together to the synagogue, but then certain ones would be asked to stand before the synagogue and address. And then, of course, they were all sitting together too in the synagogue, which was much more collegial too. Yes.
Okay, so, so, who do you think developed this? Do you think the priest or I mean, you know, this style of writing, did it develop over time? Did it just pop up?
You mean parallelism?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just developed, and that was the way they. I mean, it's not unique to the Jews, as I said earlier. Remember, I said you find it among the other Semitic area. We could find. I could give you examples of Egyptian poetry that would follow the same meter, and that was some of that was even more ancient. So I don't know why it just rose in there. Maybe it had to do with the way their language sounded. We don't always, to us it doesn't rhyme. Maybe these various ways they did it had more of a sound quality that we can't understand because we don't understand their language and how that language was produced. Always. And if you've ever listened to Arab music, it's very strange to our ears, is it not? And so that's the thing. It was common to that area. It grew up in that whole area, that whole milieu of that period of the Semitic peoples.
Do you think they set rules?
Well, yeah, I think as time goes on, it's like anything. As people get into it, and certain people get more expert at certain things, they begin to kind of maybe set certain parameters that others again begin to follow, and pretty soon it becomes a rule. Just like who sat down one day and decided what a sonnet would be. Somewhere back there, someone did that, and well, that works out pretty good, you know. And so, well, I like that arrangement too. And pretty soon it becomes kind of the way you do it. If you're going to do a sonnet, this is the way you have to do it. You have to have so many lines. Same thing in Japan with the haiku. Who, you know, somewhere along the way, someone did it, and they liked that. Or even on the other side in Ireland and the limerick. You know, there's a certain way you had to say a limerick. Who came up with that? Well, the way their language works, it seemed to play on their ears, and that's the way they liked it. So the rules come about later. There's a lot of give and take, and then finally it kind of begins to be, you know, set down, and people follow a certain pattern. And the same thing can be studied with the rules of language. I mean, I'm sure Kayla could talk to you about when she studied Milton or Chaucer, and you go back to some of that, and you look at their rules of writing were much different. Someone had to finally step in and say, no, we're going to do this way. We're going to have to put a period here. We're going to have to do something here because to make better sense of it. You know, often language at the beginning is very free form until someone finally, we don't know, group, whatever takes hold. Okay, did that help? Anybody else have questions? Keep an eye on the time here. Psalm 2 is messianic. at least in part. Why do the nations rage and the peoples plot in vain? Acts 4:23 to 31. Also Psalms 4 to 6. This is actually directly quoted in Acts as they're talking about why the people are all upset. And we'll come back to that maybe in a minute. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointing, saying, let us burst their bonds apart and cast away the cords from us. He who sits in the heavens laughs, and the Lord holds them in derision. Then he will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, as for me, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. The word Zion comes from this Hebrew word, and it means literally parched place. We would probably call it Bald Knob. Parched place, it was barren. It was just a rocky knob, and that's where they built the temple. If it was already cleared off, why not? It was on the top of the hill, very prominent. But it doesn't sound very beautiful at the time, but Zion, of course, becomes, to be looked at a very beautiful place because they put the temple there. I will tell thee of the decree, the Lord said to me, you are my son, today I have begotten you. Acts 13:32. And we bring you the good news that what God promised to the fathers, and this is what he fulfilled to us, their children, by raising Jesus, also as it was written in the second Psalm, you are my son, today I have begotten you. Direct quote. Hebrews 1:5. For to which of the angels did God ever say, you are my son, today I have begotten you? Hebrews 5:5. So also Christ did not exalt himself to be made a high priest, but was appointed by him who said to him, you are my son, today I have begotten you. So that one little verse there, very powerfully used in the New Testament, 3 times, direct quotes. So this is definitely a messianic psalm. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage and the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them with pieces like a potter's vessel. Oh, now therefore, O kings, be wise, be warned, O rulers of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear and rejoice with trembling. Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Revelation 12, verse 5. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all nations with a rod of iron. So that goes back to verse 9 there. This thing is doing all kinds of terrible things to my PowerPoint. Sorry about that. Well, I'm getting close to the end here. So let me go back and look at this. I want to go back up here. Anybody have their Bibles handy could read Acts 4:23 to 31. Someone very quickly. Acts 4:23 to 31.
They had been released, they went to their own companions and reported all the chief priests of the elders, and said to them, when they had heard this, they lifted their voices to God in one accord and said, O Lord, it is you who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, who by the Holy Spirit through the mouth of our father Abraham your servant said, why did the Gentiles rage and the peoples devise
So you can see he quotes it right there. And I love that he brings that out. Why do the nations or the Gentiles, they take counsel together? Well, at that one place, as he says, he brings out, there were the Romans, there were the Jews, and there were I got the other one, there were Greeks there. And so all these different groups were conspiring to try to deal with Jesus. So the nations were coming together and, to take counsel together. So this, again, this fits right into what the psalmist was predicting, that this was going to come about. So anyway, I wanted to be sure to bring that out. Okay, thank you so much for your presence tonight. God bless you, and we hope to see you, Lord willing, next week. No. They sing. It's a cappella. Now, if you go to a reformed liberal group, a liberal synagogue, they may have music there. But in the strict synagogue, the Orthodox, no. Sounds kind of like other.
looks just so